Create Your Own Path by Chris
I was
Baker.
born at Navy Hospital in Albert Lea, Minnesota on August 8, 1979. My parents, Mel and Karen Baker, welcomed their first child to the world that day. My family moved to the small town of Fairfax, South Carolina in 1981. At the time, we lived in the poorest county in the poorest state. My father managed the plant that manufactured the ice machines that his company built. On September 16, 1981, my brother was born. After 2 years in South Carolina, my family moved back to Albert Lea, Minnesota. I can remember getting off the plane and seeing my grandparents welcome us. My family was very comfortable in Albert Lea. It is where the majority of my family was, as well as the city that my mother grew up in. I spent my early childhood playing in the neighborhood, going fishing and camping, enjoying hockey games with my dad, and playing any sport I could. It was a great childhood that I would never trade with anyone. Halfway through second grade, my parents told me that my dad's company was relocating to Chicago and we would be moving within the next year. I did not take this news well, as I loved my life and couldn't imagine my life without my friends and relatives. We moved during Christmas break of my third grade year. This was the first big challenge of my life. After spending my first year in Chicago resenting my parents and everything about my life, I started to warm up to my new home. By fourth grade, I had developed a great friend group like I had in Minnesota. I spent my free time playing football, baseball, and hockey, much like I did back home. This continued through high school, and I remember this time fondly. With this said, I have always had an adventurous spirit and knew that I was ready to see a larger world. I knew I wanted to leave the Midwest, and going to college far away was what I was doing. Arizona State was my dream school for a long time, so going to school there was like a dream. While I was not a great student in high school, I knew that college was an experience that I must have. I chose Arizona State because of the sun, the fun, and the women. I saw college as an experience instead of a grind, and I loved every minute of it. I graduated with a degree in sociology. College taught me one thing. It was that I didn't want to do one thing for the rest of my life. I wanted to experience everything. I had seen my dad stay with one company for his whole adult life and live in the same part of the country for the majority of his life, and I found this to be extremely boring. After college, I decided to move to Las Vegas and pursue a career as a professional poker player. This period in my life was extremely exciting. The freedom was great and unbelievable. I learned a lot about myself, while at the same time learning that poker wasn't for me. After Las Vegas, I decided that it would be a good career experience to join the United States Coast Guard. I come from a family in which both my grandfathers fought in World War II and my father fought in the Vietnam War. While in the Coast Guard, I spent a year in Boston and 3 years in Honolulu. During this time, I was able to see many countries such as Nicaragua, Colombia, Peru, and Grand Cayman. My years in Hawaii were great. I learned how to surf, scuba dive, and enjoy the beach life. After 4 years in the Coast Guard, I used my GI Bill to get a master's degree in sports management from Florida State University. During this time, I was extremely motivated and was able to balance my social life, school life, and work life. I graduated with a 3.96 GPA, but a bad experience working with the football team had me questioning my career choices. After graduating from Florida State, I traveled all over the country for 6 months, ending up in Petaluma, California. It was here that it was brought to my attention that there was a teacher shortage in California. Teaching was something that I had always thought of. I spent some time applying to the program at San Francisco State University, and I am due to get my teaching credential from there in December of this year. A wise man once said that success is a journey, not a destination. To me, life is a journey. At the end of life, people are not going to remember you for the things you had or the money you made. They will remember the person you were and the things you did. I may not be a teacher for the next 30 years, but it will be a large part of my story, and hopefully my story is one that people will want to read.